Hi everyone, my name is Jeffrey Lee and welcome to the 9th episode where I talk about my book, The Fur Trade in Human Civilizations. Today I will continue with Chapter 3, going over sections 3.2 and 3.3, starting with 3.2 westward expansion across the Appalachian Mountains. So as previously mentioned, French explorer Jacques Cartier first explored the St. Lawrence River in 1534. In 1608, Samuel de Champlain established a permanent established settlement in Quebec, founding the New France colony and exploring the north. To revitalize the fur trade, Champlain decided to expand the fur trade area. So first, let's talk about the revival of the New France colony. The fur trade in New France was conducted through two main channels. First, Native Americans brought furs to French trading posts, and second, independent traders traveled to various Native American villages to purchase furs. French colonists continued to explore fur resources to the west and south, and in the spring of 1673, missionary Jacques Marquette and fur trader Louis Joliet set out to explore the legendary river south of the Great Lakes. The expedition traveled by canoe to Green Bay at the border of Michigan and northeastern Wisconsin, and then along the Fox River to Wisconsin, eventually reaching the Mississippi River. They navigated down the Mississippi, reaching the mouths of the Missouri and Ohio rivers, and continued to the Arkansas River before returning to New France. The expedition mapped the Mississippi River and confirmed it flowed into the Gulf of Mexico, not the Pacific Ocean. A significant event in mid-17th century New France was the Beaver Wars between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Huron people. The Huron were an indigenous tribal alliance in New France. A peace treaty was finally signed in 1667, ending hostilities and resuming trade. The Iroquois, having defeated the Hurons and others, expanded the territory and grew stronger, later absorbing the Tuscarora as the sixth nation of the Confederacy. During the Beaver Wars, the British provided military support to the Iroquois, forming an alliance that not only secured more furs to the British, but also paved the way for the British-Iroquois military alliance in the subsequent 7 Years' War between Britain and France. European colonists were not adept at trapping beavers and other fur-bearing animals and relied on Native Americans for fur. Therefore, the Beaver War severely disrupted the French fur trade. So now let's talk about the British acquisition of Hudson Bay. While New France was exploring the Mississippi River Valley, French explorers and fur traders Pierrot Escret Radisson and Menard Groseilliers were exploring and claiming the Hudson Bay River for the British. At the time, the new colonial governor of New France was cracking down on independent traders. Radisson and Groseilliers were arrested, their furs confiscated, and they were fined. They appealed the decision and went to Paris to petition the king. While in France, they sought government support to claim Hudson Bay for France, but received no assistance. In May of 1670, King Charles II granted a royal charter to establish the Hudson Bay Company, giving control over approximately 1.5 million square kilometers of land in the Hudson Bay and its river basins. The creation of the Hudson Bay Company not only provided Britain with a vast area rich in fur resources, but also established a significant competitor north of New France, bypassing French territory to access fur resources directly. In Newfoundland, now part of Canada, there were also territorial disputes between the British and the French into the 17th century. Newfoundland's strategic importance lay in its position on the route between Hudson Bay and Europe or the British colonies on the North American east coast. Conversely, if fully controlled by France, Newfoundland could sever British colonial connections and isolate them for an easy defeat. So now let's talk about the war to cross the Appalachian Mountain frontier. The antagonistic stance between France and Britain in the North American colonies had deep historical roots and substantial entangled interests, making their conflict irreconcilable. In the Appalachian Mountains, the French endeavored to halt British encroachments. However, the British, armed with royal charters, claimed land stretching from the Atlantic to Pacific. As a result, British colonists were resolute in their westward expansion, ready to confront the French. From 1740 to 1748, the War of the Austrian Succession in Europe spilled over into North America as King George's War from 1744 to 1748. Both the French and the British, along with their Native American allies, were drawn into the conflict. The actual end of French rule east of the Mississippi River occurred with the conclusion of the French and Indian War in 1763. The war, which began 2 years before the broader conflict known as the 7 Years' War, was part of the North American theater of this global conflict. On May 28th of 1754, George Washington and his Virginia militia ambushed a French military dispatch team, killing 14 soldiers, marking the beginning of the 9-year-long French and Indian War. This, along with the different administrative approaches in newly added areas like Quebec, further exacerbated tensions between British colonial residents in North American Britain, settling the stage for larger conflicts. Now let's talk about 3.3 American independence and how it connects to the fur trade. So, the story of American Revolution and American independence is something that is likely very common, but now let's see how they tie into the fur trade. So the fur trade in Canada was revived and expanded, and after the British acquisition of Canada in 1763, a large number of British immigrants settled in Montreal and quickly took over the fur trade previously held by the French. During the same period, Britain, seeking to offset the deficit from the Seven Years' War, implemented different taxes, which led to the American Revolution. This led to a decline of the fur trade. In 1774, British enacted the Quebec Act, which defined the jurisdiction of Quebec to include the Ohio region, and this effectively assigned part of the original North American reserve to Canada, making it more difficult for British North American colonists to move westward. This disproportionate favoritism greatly angered the residents of the British North American colonies. The American Revolutionary War was a conflict in which the 13 colonies united to resist British rule and ultimately achieved independence. In May of 1775, the Second Continental Congress convened in Philadelphia, deciding to form the Continental Army and declare independence against Britain. In 1777, the Continental Army achieved a victory at the Battle of Saratoga and formed an alliance with France to jointly combat the British. In the end, American independence was successful, and they signed the Treaty of Paris, officially ending the war. Conflicts between the United States and Native Americans began during the Revolutionary War. At that time, several tribes from the Iroquois Confederation, the Shawnee Cree, and Cherokee, as long-standing allies of Britain, preferred the less intrusive British presence. British initially planned to use well-equipped Native Americans as proxies to block American expansion into regions like Ohio and the Northwest. Although the Native American coalition achieved early victories in the war, they were ultimately defeated by the growing strength of the American forces. Over more than a century of conflict with the French, Britain fully occupied the French North American colonies, except for Louisiana, which was transferred to Spain by France in 1762. France had to pull out of America due to the Napoleonic Wars. For over 100 years, from their establishment until the end of the French-Indian War, Britain practiced a policy of benign neglect. It encouraged migration to the New World and issued land grants, but did not establish direct governmental control of the colonial residents. During the French and Indian War, tens of thousands of North Americans militia were drafted into service. These militias gained substantial combat experience that helped them during the Revolutionary War. The development of the North American colonies competed with British fur industries. Britain restricted the independent development of North American colonies' external trade, and Britain also profited by dumping goods into North American colonies. All of these were what caused the North American War, the American Revolution, and were what caused the Americans and colonists to decide to declare independence, leading to a new chapter in world history. Thank you for watching. As always, you can buy my book on Amazon. And next time we'll talk about section 3.4, continuing with chapter 3. Thank you for watching, and please also like and subscribe.